Hey, what's going on, guys? Fizz here once again. So, my Reap Ascendant, like, Vaal Pact, build that I released a few days ago, I saw, like, a good amount of people, like, arguing, like, someone posted on Reddit, and then people were like, he's padding the Righteous Fire, and, like, obviously those people aren't gonna watch the whole video. They just, they see it linked, and then they look at the POB or whatever, and they don't see the disclaimers added in the video, which is completely fine. That's fair. I would probably do the same thing too. So there was like a little bit of kickback on that one, even though there were like alternatives. Like, you don't want to use Righteous Fire. It ends up feeling clunky in practice. You can always take that out and then use Flesh and Stone with Maim instead. It's like a slight damage loss, but you get a huge buff to your life regen and all sorts of stuff like that. Now, typically what I do with these POBs, because I have seen it thrown around a little bit, people saying that like, there are creators who do bait league starter builds, which there are, and I have seen a few times on the subreddit that my name is being thrown around in that. I would like to clarify any misconceptions that these are just called POB breakdown videos. They are not called league starter videos. They're not being advertised as like God's gift to Earth with new builds. As always, as the disclaimer I make in every single one of these videos, this is just like, we got new tools. I like to make new builds. It's like what adds the most replayability to the game for me as someone who plays like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours every single league. Like, this is what gives the game new life for me. So this is what I like doing when we get new stuff in patch notes. So just to clarify. Now, as always, there are some builds that get a lot of demand for, like, if I want to league start this, can you walk me through this? How would you do it? And I do sometimes, if it's like really really popular and that's what people want, I will do it. But there's always that disclaimer, like, you should know by this point in Path of Exile, there are always the safe, good league starters. You are always taking that risk upon yourself if you decide to do something that is new. We've always known this. And I try to always iterate this as well, especially in those videos. So just to be clear, that's what those videos are. That's what these videos are. Hoping to clear up any confusion. With all that being said, the reason I talked about all that is, one, like I said, I wanted to clear up confusion, but also it got me thinking. And I was like, well, maybe with RF, it's a little bit different. What if we did sustain RF? What if we could drop Vaal Pact and work around it? And normally I wouldn't think this way, right? Typically there's like a very high like investment cost or opportunity cost to running Righteous Fire on a spell-based build and making it function correctly through pure regen, right? However, this league, we did get a new mastery called the Recovery Mastery, and a lot of the recovery nodes, they added some new ones to the tree and they buffed existing ones. So I thought about it and I was like, well, hold on. What if we went for this? Because there's also a bunch of extra sources of max res on the tree now as well. So that paired with the recovery masteries are like, hey, maybe we can just pull this off baseline. And I had the idea while I was making a league start, like, leveling tree. That video will be coming out after this one, like literally like 30 minutes after this one when I upload this. Spoiler, by the way, I'm going to be uploading a video like every like hour or two, probably up until league start. Assuming I can keep up with it and I don't like totally crash. But that's where the idea came from. So I decided to entertain it and I ended up making a new tree, and I was able to come out with something that I think is probably just better in general. So at face value, this regen straight up, we'll just get straight into the numbers. I'm gonna try to make this a short video. We don't need to go through all the mechanics of everything once again. With the Vaal Pact version, you are recovering 66 to 67% of your life per second when capped out on Leech. You are subtracting about 1,000 of that if you're running Righteous Fire. So then it's down to about 50% of your life per second. And then if you include Reap costs, then it's down to like 40%. Something around those lines, right? And then this one, I aimed to get positive life regen while running RF, but we have drastically lower leech, as you would expect. But I also tried to lower the cost of Reap a decent amount too. So with that in mind, the new values coming out of this This is about 25.5% recovery of your life per second total while running RF, while capped out on leech. Now, I will add that before we get into anything else, you're losing roughly like, I don't know, like 30 to 40% of your effective life recovery versus the other tree, but this one should feel a lot more comfortable to play and a lot easier to transition into in a league start scenario due to it not being completely reliant on leech, because a lot of people seem to be scared of only relying on overleech. I've never really had a problem with this, and you can always use a writhing jar if they're at downtime, but I understand like people who aren't used to it or people who haven't experienced that type of gameplay before might be a little bit weirded out by it, especially considering it doesn't last as long as Slayers does. With that out of the way though, it is worth noting that we are currently sitting at 600 positive life regen, like without factoring in our leech at all. We're 600 positive life regen. That is with a ruby flask active that you have benchcraft on % life gain per second. Now, it is worth noting that if you unclick this, you are still positive. And then I also have the boot enchant for regen life per second if you were hit recently. But we can also go in here and we can uncheck this here as well. And we are still sustaining the righteous fire just barely, albeit just barely. We are still slightly positive in life regen. And then you also have your 1800 life leech per second. So if all your flasks are down and you haven't been hit, you will not degen, and you're not leeching. So you can go AFK in a harvest garden and you won't decay, right? However, for mapping and for most things, this will be up. It still would be wise to run a dowsing flask, as with anything, like you would want to run on an RF build, or anytime you have any sort of degen, it would still be wise if you're bossing to run a dowsing flask. Exarch ball phase starts, you get clipped by a Maven beam, whatever it may be, you need to run a dowsing flask. So if your recovery gets turned off, or if you're in a period where you won't be able to hit something to leech, you can turn that off. So if we go in and we turn off righteous fire, you can see that our well, we don't even need to turn it off, it just stays the same here, but it's a little bit less than 1400 life regen per second. So even if you aren't leeching, if you do douse that, like on Exarch ball phase, you will have a very good amount of recovery. So how did we fit in vitality, and what really changed? Well, first and foremost, you'll notice that the tree changed quite a lot. Basically, I don't path out of Duelist start anymore, and it doesn't really matter if you take Path of Ranger or Path of Duelist. They are literally the same thing, since we do not utilize either of the starting points here. So that's the first thing to note. Aside from that, it's a lot more heavily left-sided favored, and that's mostly because of how strong Hardy is. I did try to go topside and fit in Vanquisher as well, but it ended up just not being worth the points, because you can kind of tell down here we need all these nodes. There's not a lot to drop on this side of the tree, and anywhere we can really go. So we're still buffing our leech. We just manually path the hematophagy versus anointing it like I did on the previous tree, and we still get all the increased damage from leeching and everything. And we get the increased max recovery from pathing the long way in here. Don't go the left way. It doesn't really give you anything. And then we grab the leech mastery here for, again, more maximum. So this is 25, 35, 45, and 55 maximum recovery. And then we go straight into Golem's Blood from here. This is more life, but it also is a bunch of life regen per second. Obviously, any sources of life regen you can get on the tree are going to be really helpful. And then other sources that we path through to facilitate running righteous fire. We were already in the last POB using flow of life anyway, just for the life, but now they are more effective because we are benefiting from the life regen. As well as pathing into cannibalistic rite. This reduces the this is a damage cluster that's not fully efficient by itself for damage, but this reduces the amount of life cost of reap by about 120. By itself, reduces the life cost per second by a solid 200. Though I don't know how much stock I would put in life cost per second. The actual reality is probably a decent amount lower than this. It's not like you're ever just going to stand still and spam reap in most cases. But that being said, it does lower those stats, as well as recovering 2% of life on kill if you've spent life recently. So basically the entire time you're mapping, you're going to be getting a bunch of life on kill, which is, it's like a little quality of life stat. I don't think you would ever need it. I don't think you would notice it, but it will one thing it will do is it will make it so when you cast Reap and those monsters die, it will instantly rejuvenate the cost of the life. So almost kind of like a life gain on hit thing for killing all those trash monsters. Because most trash monsters, you're hitting for over 300,000 with Reap. They're going to die to the hit. Like, they don't even have time to degen to a dot. And then Exsanguinate will be roughly the same thing. The life cost of Exsanguinate, which is what you're probably going to be mapping with, is a lot lower. But I don't have it in the links right now. Hold on. There it is. Yeah, the life cost of Exsanguinate is literally nothing. So you actually wouldn't even feel any of this while mapping. It would only come into play while bossing, I suppose. Aside from that, Pathing Hardy, this is like the strongest regen node on the entire tree. It's 15% global life regen rate. It also gives 1.8% life per second regen and 0.6 on both of the small nodes. And then the Recovery Mastery itself is a flat 50. This is really, really strong early on. This is something that you rush while leveling this build. And then into Barbarism for +1 max fire res. We get 1 max fire res there. Obviously, Pathing Prismatic Skin, we get an additional 3 max fire res there. The Armor Mastery gives +1 max res if you have armor on all your slots, which you will. And then the Reservation Mastery is +1 to max res if you have reserved life and mana, which is what we are reserving to run Vitality. So we do reserve our life to run Vitality. So that, all in all, gives you 82% max fire res. And this also has other bonuses. Getting more max fire res increases your max fizz mitigation as well, because we are using Dawnbreaker and you have a bunch. Basically on this build, you're stacking fizz taken as fire to increase your fizz max hit. You can get it on helmet, you can get it on your chest piece, and then on the shield as well. So you get a bunch of fizz taken as fire. So getting fire resistance is good for that as well. You can also something that you have to decide for yourself. The Eldritch Implicits on boots. I went for action speed and life regeneration rate. Now, if you don't want action speed, which is the Exarch implicit from the Embers, if you do not want the action speed, you can actually opt for +1 to +2 additional max fire res on the boots as well, which will give you even more regen and more fire and fizz max hit. So, other than that, I'm pretty sure that's most things. Though, do note that when we path Hematophagy, it opens up our Anoint to be a lot more aggressive. So the Anoint that I actually took was Influence, because Influence by itself is just a bunch of aura effect, and it gives us almost as much damage. Since we are running a lot of damage auras, we're running War Banner, we're running Malevolence, and we're running Pride. It gives us a lot of damage from our auras, but it will also give us a bunch of EHP, as you can see, from Determination being stronger, from Vitality being stronger. So it gives us more regen, it gives us more max hit values and stuff like that. So it's more, it's a lot of bang for your buck. The highest DPS was actually anointing Acrimony, and I think this is what you probably want to anoint early game because it's a clear black, whereas anointing Influence does cost a gold oil. So I think once you get your like +1 fizz amulet, go ahead and anoint Influence on it whenever you get a gold oil. But early game, it's really easy to get 2 black oils, like even day 1, and just have Acrimony on an amulet to get a bunch of early damage. So from there, you have 2 options, I would say, overall, with alternate pathing routes. And these are minor things that I couldn't really decide which I preferred, so I'm just going to talk about both of them. So you can actually drop Born to Fight and 1 life node here. If you take both of these, it does give you a good amount of life here. So getting life will increase both your life regen and your leech rate a little bit. But Born to Fight gives you a bunch of strength, and it also gives 26% increased fizz damage. So it's a good damage node. Because strength is also life, right? But it's also a good damage node because it's 26% increased damage, but then you get more strength, which gives more damage to Iron Will, right? So you can spend these 2 passive points here. Or you can spend passive points over here for instant leech. So instant leech this is going to be like 50-ish like life gain on hit effectively. this Taste for Blood node by itself, the travel nodes do nothing, but Taste of Blood by itself, you'll see brings you from 1800 to 2000 life lead trait. So you get about 200 regen effectively from this node. So it is very, even for 3 points, that's a lot of regen for 3 points. It's pretty efficient. But you also get a leech mastery here. Now, if 10% of leech is instant, getting that like 50 to 60 life gain on hit, you don't really feel it too much. It'll feel okay on Exsanguinate, but I think Reap has like a lower cast speed. So it may not feel like super noticeable on Reap for bossing and stuff. So if you wanted to go more defense oriented, you could always take the leech mastery for 40% increase armor and evasion while leeching. This is a massive buff to your armor and everything. But this is something you gotta kind of decide for yourself. This will be the more defense oriented route, or you can just path up here with Born to Fight. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. And if you want to, if you do want to take this, and obviously this tree is now level 100, you can drop 1 point here, and you can also drop Cannibalistic right if you want to as well to be able to fit that in. That's my opinion. So, that's everything. That's the tree. The tree ended up coming out to a decent amount more damage. I was like, why'd the DPS go up so much? Because Exsanguinate's clicked. Okay, so yeah, it's about 3.6 mil. This is with the extra blood charges. So if we take this out, it's still about 3 mil DPS. This is including cold DPS, but cold DPS is just about 300k. So our old POB was like 2.7 mil or 2.6 mil or something. So this is a pretty big DPS boost. As always, this is not your actual DPS value. There's been a lot of contention on how Vaal Reap actually works. I listed like 3 or 4 different mechanic interactions in my first video on how I think it could work. And then there were an additional 3 to 4 ways people thought it might work in the comments and in the Reddit thread. And it seems that nobody can really agree. Nobody knows. And it looks like GGG's not going to tell us before league starts. So this is one of those things you're just going to find out when you get it, which is mildly annoying. The good news is, though, that this entire POB is without Vaal Reap. So once you get Vaal Reap, it will literally just take this number and make it a lot better. Obviously, we are already accounting for the extra blood charges, which you can have virtually 100% uptime on. But it is not accounting for the actual damage of Vaal Reap itself. But it's not getting worse than this. It can only get better. And it at the very worst, you have like 50% more damage than this during burst windows. So, like you would get like an extra like 1.5 to 2 mil dot DPS when you use Vaal Reap until they move out of the puddle, assuming it doesn't benefit from blood charges, assuming there is no dot portion to the scythes, and assuming I think that's it. Assuming that the puddle is the only form of dot from Vaal Reap, and assuming that the puddle does not benefit from blood charges. But nobody knows, nobody can agree, and anyone swearing that it works one way or the other does not know either. This is literally just one of those things that we have to find out for ourselves. But worst case scenario, you get a massive dot, and with a decent amount of uptime on it throughout boss fights and whatnot, and then it will instantly kill map bosses. So that you don't have to worry about that. So worst case scenario, the build's really viable and it feels good. Best case scenario, it's actually crazy OP, right? So this is actually one of my potential league starters. I am currently bouncing, for anyone wondering, between this variant of it as well, this and Bleed Bow Champion that I made a POB for, that a lot of people have been, there's a lot of hype around Bleed Bow Champ, and I POB'd it a good amount. It has a lot of damage even on day 1 gear and stuff. I do have a few reservations of about a few things around it, but it does seem pretty strong overall. But those are the 2 big builds right now that I'm bouncing between the most. Anyway, I just wanted to do this pretty quick. This video is 19 minutes for me right now. That's very fast for me, so I'm proud of myself, because normally I try to say I make a quick video and then it's still 45 minutes long. Anyway, I hope this helps. This should be a much more balanced, well-rounded version. if you want to league start this. And then again, like this may be what I league start. So if you're curious or whatever, you can always stop by my stream or check out the YouTube video for the build diaries that I do for the builds that I play. A quick note for softcore players, they're asking like what they can do to add more to this. You can just drop life if you want to. You can drop life. You could drop cannibalistic right, drop some of those like less efficient damage nodes that are there for like hybrid defense reasons as well. And then you can just go for like a second cluster setup here. And you don't need to get the full thing. You can just take the fizz wheel because this is most of the damage, right? These nodes here are a mix of damage and defense. Like it's chaos res, life, and life regen. That's the biggest reason you want these. If you only cared about damage, you don't even need to necessarily run these. You could just use the jewel sockets and then run 2 larges. And then you could path through the top side and save a few passive points down here. Maybe drop Golem's Blood as well and go into Vanquisher. And then you'd have a lot more damage, as you can see here. So that's something you can do if you're playing in softcore. That would be my suggestion. But yeah, I believe that's everything. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. If you enjoyed the content, as always, please do subscribe, ring the little notification bell so you get notified of new uploads. As I said before, I'm going to be uploading a ton of videos between now and Friday morning, so keep an eye out from that. I may also schedule some of them to just come out after league start for people starting late, like people who are at work, you want something to watch while you're at work. I may do some of those. And I believe that's everything. Join the Discord if you want to see updates to this stuff in real time, where I talk about this before I make a video on it. I usually will monologue my thought processes if I'm not streaming in the Discord as I work through things. There will be a build compendium. This is very, very important. There's a build compendium in my Discord. Some of the POBs I make and some of the builds I do may not be able to get videos before league start. So if you want to see them, I will update that before Friday morning. So join the Discord for POBs that may or may not get videos. If I cannot make a video for them, I promise you guys that they will be in the Discord at the very least. And then finally, Twitch. You know, follow me on Twitch. I stream all the time, especially on league starts. You can be over there, watch it all live, ask me questions, or just hang out, whatever. And then Twitter, I have one. I believe that's everything. I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. I wish you all a good league start, and I hope that maybe this was interesting for some of you. Bye. See you in the next one.